Now, these statements seem to posit an amoral worldview, and I would like to ask our author, Mr. Miloszewski, if he would agree or not with this interpretation.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to make a small remark. I mean that it's a bit unfair. The guys before could discuss how cool their characters are, and we are about to discuss the very nature of evil. And about your question, I think I don't believe that we are evil by our nature. That evil can be, as we say, intrinsic. No one says homicide when asked about favorite hobby or plans for the evening. I mean, it's and I think it doesn't come from our nature. It just well, I believe that murder can be a result of a tangle of circumstances. Usually pain. I mean, if you compare it to a toothache, let's say, at the beginning, if your tooth starts to ache, okay, it's not nice, but it's bearable, and you don't really want to see a dentist. So unpleasant. But the bad emotions pile up to the specific moment that you can't stand it anymore, and you have to let off let off steam, and it's like I think about the tooth. I mean, the pain becomes so unbearable that you don't care about unpleasant visit to the dentist anymore. I just want to get rid of it, and I think that's all of us. I mean, it can happen to us. We can become a victim, or we can become a perpetrator. Because we just don't know that we can be capable of very heroic acts and very evil acts. We don't know until the day comes. But I repeat, I don't believe we are evil by our nature. I mean, it may come, and we can feel it. We can feel it deep in our hearts that the day will come. That's why we read crime fiction, because it tells us something that maybe we feel that's inside.
Thank you. May I respond?
Sure.
The moderator is allowed to respond, I hope. In terms of entanglement, though, when I think in terms of a matrix society, people's networks, their interactions with other human beings, etc., and from this matrix of conflict can come violence, and because society is a human creation, I would say that I would reduce it to, yes, evil comes from humanity then.
Yeah, I mean, it's generally speaking, but I don't believe we're evil. I mean, we are able to commit evil acts in a certain circumstances. I mean, in a tangle of circumstances. But once again, it's not our nature.
In the sense of predestination, people are not born to be evil or born to be good. They're just people.
No, yeah, of course, we can make our own choices, but as I said, the day may come that we think that this is the best choice we can do.
If one has a series of bad choices, one has to choose the best of a bad lot.
Yeah, they don't have to be a series.
Yeah.
And, one bad choice is sometimes is good enough,
Yeah,
or bad enough.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'd like to turn to Mr. Somoza now. In Zigzag, entanglement of the recent past with the present has produced evil consequences as a result of experiments with string theory by theoretical physicists. Scientifically, in quantum physics, entanglement, and here I quote, is a phenomenon by which two particles, even if they are billions of kilometers apart, have a mysterious connection, and what happens to one of them affects the other immediately. That's known as non-local behavior. And in the case of time strings, without the temporal distance, there would be a higher chance of quantum entanglement. That, and when I use the pronoun we, I'm talking for the characters now in the book. And that's why we don't do any experiments with the recent past. If they did, or if we did, the two events would merge and result in entanglement. Now, in this story, unfortunately, personal ambition leads to rogue experiments by an individual which result in what can only be regarded as evil. Pain, suffering, and violent death among colleagues who are inevitably then entangled in trying to reverse the consequences of selfish, antisocial behavior by a team member. So entanglement as a scientific phenomenon produced originally by selfish desires inexorably entangles the lives of the scientists in a web of evil. They are filled with hatred for their colleague who caused the problem. But the team leader seems to reach a view similar to that of Hellinger, which I just quoted in Entanglement, when he says, if Zigzag, that's the name of the experiment, is a result of human error, then we all deserve a little compassion. The natural world, then, seems to be amoral. Question, of error introduced by humans to produce deleterious effects. Would you agree, Mr. Somoza?
Well, I wrote a novel about physics. I am not a physicist, and I wrote it because I think the modern physics is the answer to the question of what is the reality. And the question of what is the reality, I think, is a very important question for everybody, no matter if we are physicists or not. But I want to point that in my novel, I didn't want to go for the topic of bad use of science. Because I think the topic of bad use of science is like the bad use of any other tool. The science is a tool. It's like we use badly a hammer, for example. I didn't care about that. I care about the person who used the hammer. I care in my book. I care about the people who are using that science in a bad way. And I used the science in my book as a tool in order to show how the people can use the things for evil. But this, I think, this comes to the main question of this panel, that is, the evil or the problem of evil. I think the problem of evil, we have to have in account one thing, one important thing, that is evil is just a name. It's just a name. Evil is a category, it's a moral category, it's an ethic category, which is evil for me, maybe is good for others. So when we are speaking about evil, we are not speaking about a general concept of evil, but we are speaking about which one of us consider as evil, that maybe is pretty different. And indeed, if we change the culture, the evilness is completely different. So, what is the deep root of that evil? I think in Zigzag I want to show one of my more preferred topics. That is, we like to play. We are still children, and children are cruel. Children pursue their pleasure, so we pursue our pleasure too. But children are us, and we are living under rules, under several rules. So the problem is to break these rules in order to get the pleasure. And that's all. That's evilness. That's evilness. So I am deeply interested in showing that the evil is like a play. And evil is very connected to our child instinct. And it's not really a moral category. If we think about it, we will discover that evil is just a behavior of pursuing our own interest, even breaking the rules where we are living under. So if the rules change, maybe our behavior is considered in another way.
Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I feel I just mean that some rules don't change, and we share some common human code, let's call it, and evil well isn't a play, and I think it's never been. And you are right that kids may be cruel, and they often are. But they are not evil. I mean, harm that kids do. It's not really evil. I mean, when speaking of evil, this it really means harm. And I don't know if you cannot call it a play. I think. It's breaking the rules to reach new places, to reach new horizons. Cannot be built on someone's harm.
Well, I think it's a play anyway, and before we proceed further, I must warn you that I am cyclist, so and nobody, what are you talking to me? I'm going to talk about pleasure and about the play of and about our instincts. But
my father is a psychiatrist, so I'm pretty used to it.
But I think we agree that you are talking about the concept of evil, and I said concept of evil is just a name. It's just a thing that we put over some behaviors, and it's a relative concept too. So I think I agree. I don't try to say that children are evil, of course, but in the same way, I doubt very much to say that one people is evil too. Any people, any person. So because I think it depends on the situations that we apply a concept or not. So I think one of the curious things about the literature, in the previous panel we were discussing about national character, and I think one of the panelists said very well that the literature is based upon the differences, and one of the wonderful things of the literature is that it allows us to express the things, the different things, so we can see the normal things from another point of view, and that's the literature is about. And so I think the novels help us to do that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just okay. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's what literature for. To let us live through emotions that would be otherwise we otherwise wouldn't be able to live through, and especially crime novels or thrillers.
May I comment on the use of the word play here, homo ludens? I suggest that Mr. Somoza doesn't mean light-hearted play by children, but the undisciplined instincts that we all have as adults. When we lose our civilized veneer, when we indulge our passions for the pleasure principle that he mentioned, we're behaving like children, aren't we? So childlike in that sense, that we regress.
Yes, we create other rules. So we use other rules, and then we are called bad guys. We're called evil guys, because we are doing our own rules, and we are applying our own rules in a completely different way. And one typical character of the novels, of the crime novels, is the psychopath. Is it well pronounced? Psychopath. Okay. Psychopath is like a strange child himself or herself. He or she has his own rules, and he plays with his own rules. He creates his rules. Many psychopaths think that the things they are doing are not bad at all, because they are very pleasant, and so they make the things they make them happy. So they have to be good things, because the problem is in the concepts. So I think they are a good example of the childlike behavior that we are talking.
Shall I pass on to you, Sandu? We'll come back. There's some, obviously there's a difference of opinion and perhaps even a commitment between our first two speakers, but I want to come back to some shared views that they hold before we finish. But I'd like to introduce our third speaker here, Maria Sandu. In Kill Me, the first person narrative viewpoint immediately draws the reader into the narrative, because we all identify with the pronoun I. What could be more important or more immediate than I? It is widely used in crime fiction in the private eye subgenre, all first-person narrators, or almost all, and also in tales of psychological suspense centered on the female in jeopardy, known in the trade as femjep. It is less common in villain-centered stories, but has been exploited to good effect by writers like Edgar Allan Poe and also Fyodor Dostoevsky. It can help in building empathy and overcoming reader prejudice against the criminals, because most readers of crime fiction don't identify with the perpetrator. The writer has to work very skillfully to forge a bond of identification with the bad guy, if the bad guy is going to be the main character. Now notice I said bad guy. In this book, we have a bad girl. And so I would like to ask why Kill Me uses, first of all, the villain-centered narrative viewpoint, and second of all, the female protagonist. Sorry?
My speaking English isn't very good, and Oana Radu helped me. La mine, e adevărat, sunt două fete rele.
Actually, in my novel there are two bad gals.
Pentru că niciodată nu știi care dintre ele e mai vinovată.
Because throughout the novel you don't really grasp who is more to blame and who's more guilty of the two.
Ca să răspund la întrebarea și la dezbaterea colegilor mei, unde e răul, la mine e împărțit cumva în mod egal.
So to answer the previous questions that my fellow panelists debated about, and which was launched at the very beginning of the panel, in my novel the evil is shared between the two characters equally.
Nici nu aș ști să spun care dintre ele e chiar cea vinovată, cea care a ucis-o pe doamna în vârstă cu care a locuit 3 ani, sau doamna în vârstă că i-a livrat într-una niște fantezii care i-au ocupat mult.
Myself, I will not be aware, I will not be able to say who's the more guilty one. Is it the younger woman who kills the older woman that she lived with and who hosted her for 3 years? Or is it the guilty person, the older woman who has provided her throughout this time a range of fantasies that have started to occupy her mind completely?
Amândouă trăiesc în aceeași fantezie cumva și sunt la fel de vulnerabile.
In a way, they both share the same fantasy and they live within this fantasy, and this makes them both very vulnerable.
Și această dezbatere morală, bun, există o crimă, de fapt se amestecă foarte multe lucruri în răul ăsta generic.
And if you ask the question, yes, there's a crime and who's to blame, in my case, in the novel, I'm more interested in putting this moral question in
a uneia dintre ele și nesiguranța tinereții în cazul celelalte.
And so in this crime, there are a lot more things that come together, and it's not so straightforward where the evil is. It's a moral dilemma that's more complicated than that. It's the death, the fear of death of one of the characters, and
Și nesiguranța tinereții.
and the uncertainty and fear of the young person, unable to know how really to live.
But you didn't answer the question about gender. Most of the audience would be familiar with Crime and Punishment or Heartbreak House, whatever, you know. But did you think about having a male protagonist, or did you always think of a female?
Există și un băiat în poveste, accidental, așa, un rezoner în poveste.
There is a man in the story as well. He's more of a sort of an echo of the main story. Somebody who echoes what's happening.
Și el joacă cumva rolul cititorului, dacă vreți. E un fel de personaj care se intersectează cu o poveste care e foarte străină. El e cel care află de crimă, da?
And in a way he has the role of the reader in the book. He comes really accidentally crosses this story and the crime and something he doesn't know about. And he enters a story that doesn't belong to him. Why women?
Femeile, de fapt totul a pornit, ca să înțelegeți, de la ideea că de fapt îi omorâm pe toți oamenii de care ne despărțim la un moment dat. Ideea mare a cărții, dacă...
The starting point, the leading idea of the book is that in a way we kill the people that we separate and or they are being separated from at some point in our life.
Îi uităm, ei continuă să trăiască, dar de fapt pentru noi sunt morți, nu mai ceva se termină acolo.
We forget them, they continue on with their life, but for us they are dead and something ends at some point.
Și atunci mi se părea important, având povestea asta despre intimitate între două femei, să văd până unde se poate duce. Așa, crima cumva e și nu e important.
And for me, what was important is to build this intimate story, this story actually about the intimacy between two female characters. And in a way, the crime is what ends this, but it is not what is most important. It is, but it's not the most important element.
E mai important ce se întâmplă de fapt între ele, într-o casă cu fantasme și cu...
What is more important is what is built between them and the relationship and how it evolves in a house filled with ghosts.
Și într-un fel, marea mea miză a fost să nu, la sfârșit, nici măcar eu, să nu știu care dintre ele e mai vinovată, dacă cea tânără o omoară ca să scape, sau cea în vârstă voia să moară, dar nu avea curajul să o facă singură.
And in a way, what I wanted to achieve is that at the very end, it's not really clear who's to be blamed. Is it the younger woman who killed her in order to escape? For whom the killing the older person was really the only way out into reality and living? Or was it the older woman who wanted to die, but was not courageous enough to do it herself?
Which brings us back to entanglement. As her story unfolds, it becomes clear that Ramona is overtaken by events, rather than choosing the direction of her life. By going with the flow, she becomes entangled in the dreams and schemes of the other people's lives with deadly consequences. Accepting as truth what they tell her, she becomes less and less able to distinguish between fantasy and reality. By showing how it is possible to become so entangled in other people's delusions, did you intend to suggest that she should not be held accountable for her actions because the distinctions between right and wrong no longer possible?
Nu absolvă în niciun fel și ea însăși, în momentul în care își povestește ultimii 3 ani din viață, are conștiința faptului că a făcut o crimă, nu e nimic.
No, this doesn't make her less or non-guilty of a crime, and this is actually her own perspective when she tells the last 3 years of life of this relationship. She's very much aware that she committed a crime, and she's paying for it.
Thank you. Now, despite disagreements about the nature of evil on the other side of the table here, I would like to repeat the quotation from Entanglement, which the most sympathetic of the scientists finally reaches when he says, "I know the only way to cope with the presence of evil is to admit that evildoers are people too, in spite of everything. We should find a place in our hearts for them as well, for our own good." And in Zigzag, the team leader seems to reach a very similar view to that of Hellinger in Entanglement when he says, if zigzag is the result of human error, in other words, the evil in that they are trying to combat in that book, then we all deserve a little compassion, because after all, we are all human. Our problems, whether we label them evil or something else, these antisocial acts are all human, and we are all entangled. We are all in the same boat. Would you agree with that or not? Here I am trying to pour oil on the water.
Yes, I think the problem of those sentences is that they converge in one point. We all are capable to do whatever, to do even the most evil things. I think one day I will write a novel, and I say publicly, because I'm trying to get an idea about what would happen if, for example, the government in the country, the president, announces publicly that the penalty for killing people is no longer. We can kill each other without any problem, any legal problem. I really like that idea. I'm not telling that I am thinking some people to kill, but I like that possibility in order to write a novel, because it would be very curious to imagine, and it's a question that I can pass to the audience. It's very interesting to imagine what would happen with each of us. Please try to imagine, not now, because now you are trying to listen to my bad English and other panelists, but when you go to home, please try to dedicate yourself some time to think about what would happen with you. What really would happen, and to see if it is possible that our apparently well-known personality can change completely when the rules change completely. Of course, I am not talking anything new. you know that similar things happen in countries when the political system change tremendously. And I think we all have examples of that. But I really I am interested in what happens, not in that country or in that country or in that political system, but what happens with everyone, with one of us, with each one of us. And I think that if I can get an answer to that, I think I would answer to your question here.
Yeah, well,
Please.
As I said before, my father is a psychiatrist, but he has 2 master degrees from psychiatry and from history. And it happened before. I mean, we know examples from the history. What happens if someone says, okay, you can kill almost anybody you want. Okay, not your nation, but any other nations that are lesser than our. And I understand what you're talking about it. Kind of interesting, but I think that we already know that if you cut people off leash, or if you let them, if you free them completely from justice and from responsibility for their actions, terrible things will happen, as they did happen.
Well, I think it's time to turn this question over to the audience.